Is it just me, or does it feel like the millennials and the Gen Z really just got the short end of the stick with quite literally everything? Like, we are living in such a time where it is so impossible. It is like it is it is like virtually impossible to just be able to like do the bare basic minimum anymore. You know, like a lot of the silent generation and the boomers, they could just, graduate high school, and they didn't even necessarily have to go to college. I mean, college was always an option. I mean, they started doing all the college stuff, and, they could, get a college education, get higher paying jobs, which is all fine and dandy. But the thing that is different between then and now is like you could actually do, the low. You could do like a minimum wage job, and that would still be enough to get you, an apartment or like a small little house. You could still, afford that. Meanwhile, now, a lot of the millennials and Gen Z, unless they just, happen to, come from really wealthy families, or they, actually, start up their own business, and they're, have their own successful businesses, which is a really hard feat, not easy at all. The rest of us are just kind of just stuck we're stuck having to like just live with our parents, or have several roommates, like just have several roommates to split expenses. Jobs are like almost nearly damn impossible to get nowadays. It's almost impossible to get a job. Like, everything is so oversaturated. And one thing that nobody really wants to talk about is a big part of the problem with the job thing is all the immigrants, all the illegal immigrants that have been coming into this country and getting their working, like, in a lot of the, companies, especially a lot of the corporations, they knew that a lot of these immigrants are gonna, they'll work for whatever. They don't have as high standards as, most Americans, which, so they, will just hire these, illegal workers. And because there's been such an influx of people coming from other places, that's another part of the puzzle, is that because more people have come into this country, it's increased the demand for housing, for groceries, basic human necessities, water, electricity, just the things you need to sustain basic human life. And everything has just become oversaturated. And now there, a lot of people have gotten college degrees or trade programs, and it's not special anymore. It's not like, places don't really seem to care about that stuff as much anymore. Like, I don't know, it's just it's totally, it's just like, there's the carrot at the end of the stick, but all the other generations, I feel like, before the millennials, and I'm not saying that I know there's some boomers and some Gen Xers that are kind of struggling too right now, along with the millennial and Gen Z. I'm not saying that the millennial and the Gen Zs are the only ones suffering right now, but it's just really unfortunate, the chain of events that's happened. Because I remember when I was like a kid, I was just thinking, all I had to do was graduate, get through school, graduate high school, I could get just a full-time job, and then be able to have my own place. But that unfortunately was not the case, unfortunately, because we had the great economic recession, and we had in 2008, 2009 was a really big recession slash depression, and a lot of people lost their jobs then, and that was, kind of like the start. That was really kind of like the start, but we didn't really feel the impacts, as significantly until really, the COVID pandemic. And then the COVID pandemic happened in 2020. A lot of people died. It was very serious. It especially affected the older people, like the older people who had predisposed conditions. Some of my own family members almost died, when it first started, and then after COVID, everything just was so like destroyed from COVID. Like, people, it's destroyed, the overall social aspect of life. Nobody wants to be social anymore. And I'm really saying that beyond just, I know, there's introverts and extroverts, but, now it's like nobody really wants to socialize anymore. Nobody wants to be around other people. Nobody wants to talk. People are just drained. They have no energy for anything. People are just literally just like working and grinding to the bone just to live paycheck to paycheck. Unfortunately, most people. And it just feels like, there's not even a carrot at the end of the stick anymore. Like, there's just no carrot, and we're being beaten with the stick. And, the only people who are really thriving right now are like the really wealthy people, like the ultra wealthy. They're the only ones thriving. Everybody else is just, hanging on, fighting for their life. And it's just really sad, man. It's I so would have loved for it to have been like how it used to be, like in the 70s and the 80s. It could just, work even a minimum wage job full time could provide you with an apartment, a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. And now that you can't even do that. People are having to like have 1 or 2 other roommates. People are like having to split bills because everything is so expensive because of the inflation. I mean, they say that the inflation slowed down, like it's not increasing as much, but I mean, it's like, what does it matter? Like, everything is so way more expensive now than it ever was. I mean, you just go to the grocery store. Just go to the grocery store and you'll see how bad it is. I mean, want to get like 1 bag of chips. Say you want like a family-sized bag of Doritos, you're going to be paying at least $6 for that bag. Whereas back in the day, you could probably get that bag for $2 or $3. You want to get like a jar of nuts. Say you want to get one of those little jars of nuts. That's going to be like $10 to $15 for a jar of nuts. And so it's just, and that's just food. We're just talking food there. That's not even including the outrageous rent prices and the home prices. Because most homes nowadays are going for like $300,000, $400,000 or higher, and most people just we don't have enough money to do that. We don't have enough money to buy that, especially the young people. We don't have anything like that, and so it gets to a point where like if you don't own like a house or you don't own land, like. And I've said this multiple times, like I'm to the point now where I am going to have to fully rely on my parents, and I'm just going to have to inherit a house or land from them, because there is going to be no way otherwise that I would ever be able to afford my own place. There just wouldn't. There's no way that would happen. It's not happening, Captain. It's not happening. So I don't know. It's just getting really scary, and I just feel like the incentive, the motivation, the incentive is just gone. I mean, people are just exhausted and too tired to even like fight or protest or do anything, which is what really we should do. We really should try to like get enough people, get numbers, and like start going out in the streets and protesting, enough with this, either lower the prices of things, or raise our minimum wage. And you know it shouldn't be where there's people who are working a full-time job or like multiple part-time jobs that can't even afford living quarters. They can't even you know that is that shows that it's just the system is fundamentally flawed at this point, and it's beyond broken. We're not sitting here and expecting that everyone should just live in mansions. Like, I mean, I've never had that expectation. I don't really care. I really could care less if I, lived in a mansion or I lived in like a little tiny little house in the woods. That doesn't matter to me. Like, anything that I have here, I don't get to take with me when I die. But, I feel like everyone should at least be able to have the bare minimum, basic necessities, and not be out on the street, homeless, exposed to the constant elements and the extreme temperatures and just the dangers in general. I mean, people are crazy out there. I mean, people are just shooting people. People are like killing each other. I mean, it's like people are just getting angrier and angrier, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just like, I just remember when I was a kid, I was actually looking forward to getting older and becoming an adult. But now that I'm an adult and I'm here, I'm just like, I never imagined that it would have been like this. I really, call me naive. I mean, I had more, I used to have hope. I used to genuinely have hope and trust in this country, and trust in, that anyone, would be able to like have an easy, somewhat decent life here in America. And that's just not the case anymore. But it's a strange time to be alive, that's for sure. It really is a strange time. That's for any generation that's really alive right now. But I know the millennials and the Gen Z, it's really hitting us hard right now. I don't know. I really am just scared for my future. I really am. I'm just praying to God, like, God, please, let me, to have what I need. And, I'll help my parents in whatever way I can. I try to like help them with things. I want to, if they get to a point where they're getting older, I want to try to help them. I don't know though. I might want someone to like change diapers or something, but I can like feed them. I can like do other things. I don't know. It's just really crazy right now. The world is just really, really insane right now. And it's just so much different than when I was like a kid and even a teenager, but especially when I was a child and like a teenager, the world was so different than what it is now. But I don't know. I know I'm not alone here. I know I'm not alone with these feelings and these thoughts and overall just concerns and fears about, the future of, this place, of this world, but more specifically, I guess, for me here in America, because I live in America. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't really have much hope anymore. I mean, I'm just I'm trusting in God, that He's gonna provide, everything that I need. And that's all I really care about. Like, I just, I'm not like a super materialistic I mean, I like to have some things that I need, like, but I don't need, the most fancy thing. I don't need the most fancy clothes. I don't need to eat at the most fancy, like I don't, social class, like, I don't care about any of that. I just, I care about being able to live a life where I, have what I need. But anyways, these are just my thoughts. Hope you guys are, enjoyed looking at the birds. I really like watching the birds, honestly. I enjoy watching them eat. Okay. Well, I'll just look at them a little longer, but oh, there's a big woodpecker on there. There's a cardinal over there. Okay. Well, talk to y'all later.